Ever had a Karen measure your grass gate creeks? She showed up with a clipboard and a rule book she wrote herself. That mailbox color, she said, violates Section 12. I was standing 27 feet outside her jurisdiction. Paper slap. I opened the certified map, county seal shining in daylight. Maps don't bend. Gavel drop. Next week, her HOA meetings were canceled and my mailbox stayed exactly the same color. It started with the sound of gravel under heels, sharp, deliberate, too clean for a driveway like mine. I looked up from the fence post I was sanding. Across the yard, Mara, green clipboard in hand, stood like she owned the air itself. Two neighbors trailed her Doug with his cap pulled low and a younger guy filming on his phone. "Ethan," she said, drawing my name out like an accusation. "You'll need to remove that mailbox. It's non-compliant." I blinked at her. The metal box, painted navy blue, sat firm on its post. My father and I had bolted it there 15 years ago, one of the few things that hadn't rusted through time or rules. Non-compliant with what exactly? The bylaw, 1207, she said, flipping a page. Approved colors are white, beige, and colonial green. Yours is none of those. Doug shifted eyes on the camera lens. They wanted a scene. I wiped sawdust from my palms. "Mara, the HOA map stops 27 feet short of this line." I pointed to the boundary pin, a silver disc half buried in clay. "You don't own this dirt." She smirked. "The committee reviewed all parcels last quarter. That marker's misplaced." "Funny," I said. "County's record says otherwise." Filed June 2016. Survey verified. You can check it. The younger man zoomed in on my mailbox, narrating under his breath. It felt like being dissected in my own yard. Mara tilted her clipboard. "You can repaint, or we'll issue a citation." "I'm not repainting my mailbox because you're bored," I said. "Paper outlives noise." Her smile froze. Doug coughed into his sleeve. She pulled a phone from her blazer. "We'll handle this formally then." "By all means," I said. Formally's my favorite way. 5 minutes later, a patrol car coasted up the street. Lights off, engine humming. Officer Reed stepped out, hand resting casually near his belt, not tense, just tired. "Mornin', folks," he said. "Complaint about a disturbance." Mara turned sweet. "We're just addressing a homeowner violation, officer." He looked from her clipboard to my hands. "No disturbance here." He eyed the mailbox. "Pretty sturdy post, though." "Appreciate it," I said. Mara's jaw worked. "So he can defy HOA orders, and there's nothing Reed cut her off gently. Ma'am, HOA issues aren't criminal. If you want enforcement, you'll need civil paperwork." I nearly smiled. The word civil hung in the air like oxygen returning to a suffocating room. Doug muttered, "Told you he'd lawyer up." "Not lawyering up," I said. "Just reading what I signed." Mara's clipboard dropped a notch. The younger guy stopped recording. For a second, the world felt still lawns trimmed to perfection, flags fluttering in identical rhythm. My blue mailbox stood out like a bruise, but a clean one, honest against the green. Reed nodded toward me. "You good here?" "Better than most," I said. He tipped his hat and left gravel crunching softer this time. Mara didn't move. "This isn't over, Ethan. The board will escalate. Then I'll meet them where it counts," I replied. Her eyes narrowed. Meaning. "I'll bring the map." Doug rubbed his neck. "Let's go, Mara." But she stayed watching me as if expecting the ground to side with her. The breeze shifted. The boundary pin caught sunlight. A small reflection trembled on her clipboard. She glanced at it, then back at me, unsettled by something too small to name. Somewhere down the block, a garage door closed, echoing like a gavel. Then came a low hum. Engines synchronized heavy official. 3 black SUVs turned the corner and slowed beside the curb. I exhaled, steady. Guess we're doing this the formal way after all. The email landed before sunrise. The screen glow washing the workbench in cold light. The subject line was neat, aggressive official notice. Annexation Clause 9D. Coffee steamed beside a torque chart I'd never finished pinning. The neighborhood sprinklers hissed like a metronome outside. I opened the PDF. A logo at the top, the sort of crest you print when you want power to look permanent. Immediate compliance expected. Beneath it, a paragraph that tried to sound like law. I read it twice. Then I read the signature a third time. I set the phone face up on the bench and let the screen dim. The house hummed. The street held its breath. The mailbox stood out the window, slate gray and stubborn. Past it, the boundary pin caught a thin thread of sun. The little metal disc didn't look like much, but it was the only honest thing on my block that didn't talk. I woke the phone and scroll-tapped to the attachments. Annexation Clause 9D may extend jurisdiction to adjoining parcels sharing visible frontage. The sentence wandered hopeful and vague. I dragged my finger under the words like I was measuring them. I pulled a folder from the cabinet HOA correspondence and slid the phone beside it. "Let's do this clean," I said to the empty room. The printer spooled. Paper fed. Received, 0641, stamped in the margin from my email client. I highlighted the key line and wrote in the margin, "May does." The phone buzzed again. Final warning, escalation pending. The timing was a tell. Power hates being ignored. I dialed the county records number from the old deed packet. The call music was the exact opposite of urgent pink noise and polite violins. Then a click. Property records, Fairfax County. "This is Janet. Morning. Janet. I need clarity on a boundary. Parcel 24. See address, 2 Tower 49, Oakrest Lane. Does Oakrest Meadows HOA govern that parcel?" Keys tapped. A pause. 1 moment. The line went quiet except for a soft desk fan on her end. I stared at my bench screws sorted in a takeout cup, a small strip of blue painter's tape linted with sawdust, the corner of the county deed, peeking from a sleeve-embossed seal shining like patience. Janet came back. Parcel 24. See, more tapping. "No, sir. That parcel sits outside the recorded HOA boundary, 27 feet beyond it." I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "So their annexation clause doesn't apply. There's no annexation on file," she said, calm, almost bored. "Their 2018 proposal shows returned for revision and no resubmission." I leaned on the bench. "Can you email a jurisdiction map and note, anything stamped?" "Sure. Certified copy will need in person, but I can send a digital pull now." A soft printer chirped near her. "What's your email?" I gave it. "One more thing," I said. "They're citing visible frontage." She chuckled, not unkind. "That's not a law. That's optimistic." The inbox dinged. County, jurisdiction, map.pdf. Then a second, ping, parcel, note, 24C, unincorporated.pdf with a footer filed, 1207. "Got it," I said. "Janet, thank you. Anything else?" "Just one line for my notes." I clicked the PDFs open. The shaded HOA area stopped short of my lot like a tide that never reached the shore. "Could you say the thing again?" "Of course," she said. "Your parcel sits 27 feet outside the HOA boundary. Their filings show no approved annexation." I nodded to no one and wrote it down slow. 27 feet outside, no annexation approved. The garage door rattled open a few inches to let the cool in. A neighbor jogged past pretending not to look. The street held that practiced calm. Oakrest specialized in uniform hedges, synchronized sprinklers, a hush that always felt managed. I slid the printouts into plastic sleeves and snapped them into the binder. Phone letter map note stacked by date and labeled with a thin black pen. The good kind, the one that won't smear. Another email from the HOA landed on cue. "Failure to comply constitutes willful defiance. Community protection depends on adherence." The tone tried to be parental. The grammar tried to be steel. I answered with a single line and attached the PDFs. Subject Annexation Clause 9D. Reply, please see County Jurisdiction Map and Parcel Note. My lot is outside the boundary by 27 feet. Rules aren't law when records disagree. I hovered over the last sentence, then left it in. Send. The house went quiet again, like it was waiting for a decision it already knew. I took the binder to the dining table and laid it open beside a stack of envelopes I'd saved out of habit. The HOA logo looked different in a pile. Smaller, shrinkable. Footsteps in gravel outside. Then nothing. Maybe a passerby. Maybe someone photographing a flower bed to feel important. I stood and looked out at the mailbox. Slate, gray, clean lines. It didn't ask permission to exist. Neither did the boundary pin reflecting a blade of light through the grass. The phone buzzed with a short reply. "We will review your claim. Compliance is still expected until a decision is made." I stared at it for a second, then set the phone face down. "Let's see." I said, "How far you'll go for 27 feet. The county archives smelled like paper and patience. Air, cool as a church light's, humming with that tired fluorescent buzz that makes time lean on the wall. I signed the log, slid my ID back into my wallet, and followed a cardboard arrow that said Property Records, in a hand that hadn't changed fonts in 20 years. A fan ticked behind a half door. The clerk looked up over wireframe glasses, hair silvered the way file boxes fade at the edges. A brass tag read, Howard. He was typing with 2 fingers steady as a metronome. "Morning," I said. "I'm looking for HOA filings for Oakrest Meadows. Any annexation after 2010. He nodded like he'd heard that request 100 ways. "Parcel 24C is mine," I said, "but I'll take the association filings first." He spun his monitor, the screen painting his glasses blue. "All right. HOA, Oakrest Meadows. A few clacks. Filings, charters amendments." He dragged a window with the care of a man who had seen too many crash. "Here we are. Proposed annexation 2018. And approved." He tapped. Paused. Tap, tap. Returned for revision. He turned the monitor back. "No resubmission on record." The room went quiet enough to hear the fan change gears. Somewhere behind us, a printer coughed once and regretted it. "So they've been citing an amendment that never passed," I said. Howard didn't smile, but the corners of his eyes admitted they wanted to. "Happens more than you'd think. Folks confuse bylaws with the law. Paper is an honest judge when you let it be." I set my folder on the counter. "I need a certified copy of the last valid boundary and anything showing the rejection. And if available, the utility plat for the common tracks." He pushed back from his chair and stood with the slow precision of a man who still trusts his knees but doesn't like to boast. "Map drawers are in the back. You'll want the 2010 survey for jurisdiction and the utility overlays for easements." He waved me through the half door. "Come on, we'll thread it." We passed metal shelving that smelled like dry cardboard and copy toner. He pulled a flat drawer with a gentle grunt and laid a rolled tube on the table. The paper opened with a breath. Blue lines, black ticks, an embossed seal that caught the ceiling light like a coin at the bottom of a fountain. "This one," he said. 2010 Jurisdictional Survey. County seal at the bottom. I traced the shaded HOA boundary with a finger. The line stopped before my parcel the way a careful painter stops before the trim. 27 feet of white between their authority and my grass. "May I asked. He placed a plastic ruler in my hand. "Confirm your peace of mind," he said straight. I measured edge to pin lips, counting silently. 27. On paper and dirt, Howard's mouth tipped. "Maps don't bend." I nodded. "They don't." I said and felt that truth settle the way a level bubble centers between 2 lines. Mini Cliff 300 words. He turned to a taller cabinet and tugged a drawer labeled Easements. Oakrest. Thick vellum sheets with overlays in red. He lifted one carefully. "Here," Howard said, tapping a light red line. "Drainage channel from the greenbelt exiting at your rear boundary. Fiber conduit trunk." His finger moved, and here irrigation branches serving the common lawn behind the clubhouse. The word common had quotation marks on his tongue. "Runs under my parcel?" I asked. He nodded. "Technically, yes. Recorded before the HOA formed. The developer's plat reserved access, but ownership of the surface remained with the parcel holder unless transferred." He looked at me over the paper. Was it transferred, no? I said. Developer went belly up before half their promises had boots. Howard's hum felt like that fan again, low and knowing. Then, the easements exist, but the land is yours. He moved to a stamp. The rubber block had the authority of a century in it. Certified copy, he asked. Please, I said. Boundary and overlay. Anything with rejection language for their annexation. He slid the survey under the stamp, pressed down, and a wet thunk echoed. He inked the easement overlay next. The seal shone a little as it dried, filed, 812-07, the kind of text that makes bluffs evaporate. I couldn't help it. I smiled. This is everything. He shrugged. It's just what's true printed. I pulled out my check card, and he waved me off. $10 a page at the front desk. We are a temple, not a marketplace. I laughed once. The sound felt too loud, but the room forgave me. Minnie Cliff, 620 words. While the clerk at the counter made copies, I snapped photos on my phone. Not to post, not to gloat, just to carry the feeling of edges that don't move. One photo caught the angle just right, the county seal flaring like a small sun. Howard slid the certified copies across the counter in a stiff manila jacket. The jacket had a window for the date. The stamp poked through, received 10/13. Anything else, he asked. I swallowed a thought I didn't want to admit had turned into a plan. Do you have the clubhouse lot platted separately, or is it part of a common tract? He checked a ledger with columns done by hand. Listed as common tract, parcel 11. Different overlays for the pond path and hall. Developer filed intent to dedicate, but there's no executed transfer deed to an association. It just hangs there, like a sign someone meant to nail up and never did, I said. He slid me a photocopy of the ledger line. That one's not certified, he said, but the facts are. If you need the formal request form is in the rack. He tapped it. We can pull it by afternoon. I tucked the forms into the jacket. My fingers rested on the embossed circle again. Strange how a ridge in paper can feel like a hand on your shoulder saying, keep going. Howard leaned weight on his forearms. You said annexation clause. Folks throw that word around like confetti. The county doesn't take confetti. They sent the police into my yard, I said. Over paint. He didn't flinch. Then you do this slow. Daylight. Microphone on. Read into the record. He lifted the stamp again and set it down gently as if to bless the advice. And keep your neighbors at the center. They've been living under noise. I slid everything into my folder labeled HOA, Correspondence, and added a new tab. County. Certified. Howard. I said you just gave me the floor plan. He tilted his head. I gave you what you already had. The floor plan's older than both of us. I extended a hand. He considered the clock, then shook once firm enough to count. Bring the truth back in one piece, he said. I stepped into the hallway. The hum followed me like a low organ note. At the exit, a bulletin board leaned crooked under a thumbtack map of recycling days and a flyer for a pancake breakfast at the VFW. I pushed the door and felt heat rise like the day had been waiting. Outside, my phone buzzed. A neighbor's message blinked up. They scheduled a hearing for Saturday. Mara's collecting signatures. I looked down at the jacket, the seal flashing once and the easement lines burnished under plastic like veins under skin. I set it to the empty parking lot because it was too good not to share maps don't bend. Then another thought threaded behind it, quieter and sharper. I traced the red overlay with my thumb through the plastic. The irrigation branch split at the corner of my lot, turned beneath the sidewalk and dove toward the clubhouse foundation like a root seeking water. The fiber trunk took the same path. I felt the shape of the leverage and tried not to smile too obviously at nobody. Those easements, I realized, ran right under their clubhouse. The flyer came like a verdict slid under a cell door. Paper rasped on tile, then silence returned to the house. I picked it up without bending old habit from shop floors and field checks. Large font at the top, cheerful and threatening in equal measure, mandatory compliance hearing. Saturday, 12:00 p.m. Location, Community Hall. Attendance required. A blue stamp bled through the corner, posted 0712. I set it on the garage workbench beside the certified map and the easement overlays in their plastic sleeves. The printer hummed under the swing arm lamp, spitting copies I didn't plan to argue with later. Ink smell, warm plastic. The lamp threw a tight circle of light and the edges of the room stayed honest and dark. I opened the laptop and pulled up the email chain. Violation 00001. Final notice. Escalation. Annexation Clause 9D. Each subject line was a rung on a rickety ladder. I dragged PDFs into a folder, renamed them with dates, and printed one of each. The garage accepted the work the way a bench accepts a heavy, vice quiet braced. The flyer's language read like a stage direction. Hearing will be conducted under Oakrest Meadows Charter. I scribbled under it with a carpenter pencil. Show charter filing date. I slid the certified jurisdiction map from its sleeve. Seal bright edges stiff. I had the feeling you get when a level bubble locks dead center. I labeled a tab Boundary. 2750, filed, 1207, and snapped it into the HOA correspondence binder. The rings closed with a bite. Due diligence beats volume Y said to the lamp, and the lamp didn't disagree. The garage door was cracked for air. Lawnmowers came and went down the block like slow planes taxiing. I laid out the evening like a blueprint. Okay, I told myself. Exhibits. Exhibit A, HOA, Welcome Packet Map. The shaded bubble stopping short of my lot. Exhibit B. Official Notice. Annexation 9D. The paragraph with the Wandering May. Exhibit C County Jurisdiction Map PDF. The only map that mattered when it mattered. Exhibit D Parcel Note 24C. Unincorporated footer filed, 1207. Exhibit E Easement. Overlay utility on fiber irrigation across my boundary. I punched holes with the battered 3-ring metal teeth, punching a rhythm, thunk, thunk, thunk. Each page slid into order like a beam finally meeting its notch. The stamped seal caught again on the lamp's cone of light, tiny sun, same gravity. My phone vibrated face down on the bench. I flipped it over with a fingertip. HOA, blast, email, CC'd, to half the street residents are reminded that community standards protect property values. Attendance is mandatory. Disruptions will be documented. I stared at the phrase. Disruptions will be documented and almost laughed. Good, I said. Let's document. I took a sticky note and wrote 3 lines for the podium I hadn't been invited to. 1. Show charter filing. 2. Read boundary allowed. 3. Request on-mic acknowledgement. I placed the sticky over the map's legend like a promise. The binder was nearly full. I loaded the last sheet protector slid in the annexation proposal, returned for revision, and pressed the plastic flat to chase the air out. On the bench, the deed corner curled a little in the dry air. I weighed it with a box wrench. The R state of it ran a crack in the story they'd been telling wasn't damage. It was daylight getting in. I tested the latch quarter turn, then a click. The binder snapped shut like a case. I wrapped a strip of blue painter's tape around the spine and wrote in block letters, Oakrest Public. The house was otherwise still. The kind of still that makes an engine noise 2 streets over sound like a verdict approaching. I breathed through my teeth and checked my list again. Artifacts, tabs, dates, stamps. A second copy of the easement overlay in case the first one went missing in the breeze of a microphone stand. My phone lit Betty Walsh. They're setting chairs on your side of the cul-de-sac. That legal, I texted back civil, not criminal. Bring a seat, not a fight. 3 dots. I'll bring coffee. Can I read something if they get loud? Let me read. You nod. I stood at the threshold and looked out at the yard. The boundary pin flashed low a coin at the lip of the grass. The mailbox looked calmer than I felt. Wind eased under the cracked garage door and lifted the flyer's corner. Mandatory fluttered, then laid down flat. I slid the binder into a messenger bag, pressed the flap, and set it by the door. My hand lingered on the strap. Years of torque charts and inspection logs had trained a muscle memory carry the proof, not the story. I killed the lamp. The printer cooled with a click, then another. I said it out loud, not for drama, but for aim. We go public. Outside, a neighbor's porch swing creaked. A sprinkler ticked through its cycle and shut. The street exhaled. Headlights washed across the side wall. One set, then two, then a third. I stepped to the edge of the garage and felt the night thicken. SUV headlights flared white across my driveway glass and chrome finding edges the lamp had left alone. They idled at the curb like punctuation made of engines. I didn't move toward them. I stood with the binder strap in my hand, the deed and the maps and the overlays and the flyers flattened into a single spine. Paper over intimidation. That was the work. By noon, the cul-de-sac looked staged podium folding chairs and a speaker wired to clipboards. The sun burned straight down, no shadows for anyone to hide in. Neighbors sat shoulder-to-shoulder, faces tilted like a jury learning how to be one. I walked in with a messenger bag and the weight of paper that had learned to speak. Mara tapped the mic. It squealed, then sulked. "This hearing will come to order," she said. "We are here to address repeated violations by Mr. Ethan Carter." I set my bag on a chair unzipped and stacked my binder on the podium's lip without asking. The county seal flashed once in the glare. Doug stood off to the side, a notebook in his hands and a nervous pen keeping time. "Mr. Carter, Mara said you'll remain silent until recognized." "I'll remain accurate," I said. "That'll do." A few people coughed into their cups to hide smiles. Betty Walsh clutched a thermos like it was evidence. Mara straightened papers. Item 1. Unauthorized mailbox color. Item 2. Obstruction of visual uniformity. Item 3. Before you finish 3, I said, "Could you read into the record which charter filing you're enforcing?" Her eyes hardened. Oakrest Meadows. Charter governs all parcels within our community. Filed when I asked. She lifted her chin. "Our records are internal. County records aren't," I said, and opened the binder to the tab marked Boundary. 27 Fift. Filed 412-07. The plastic sleeve crackled like a stage cue. I slid out the certified county map and held it flat with 2 fingers. In the top corner, the footer showed received 03-17. Doug leaned in despite himself. "What's that timestamp county email receipt?" I said. "The certified copy's stamped on the hard print." Mara tightened her grip on the podium's edge. "Maps can be misread." "Maps don't bend," I said, and the line carried farther than I meant it to. Minnie Cliff 300 words. An officer stepped out from the shade of an elm, same one from the driveway, sunglasses reflecting neat houses, and held breath. He didn't reach for anything but patience. "Afternoon," he said. "What do we need?" clarified. Mara pointed with her clipboard. "Officer, this resident refuses compliance. We're asking you to enforce community law." He nodded once then to me. I laid the map on the podium so the crowd could see the shaded HOA bubble, stopping short of my parcel like a tide that never quite made it to my lawn. "County jurisdictional map," I said. 2010 survey. The association's 2018 annexation was returned for revision, never resubmitted. The shaded area ends here. I tapped the border. My parcel sits 27 feet outside. A breeze hit the paper. I held the corner. The officer read silently, then traced the legend with one knuckle. The cul-de-sac went quiet enough for the microphone to find its own hum. "Where'd you get this?" he asked. "County Archives," I said. "Certified. Seal at the bottom." He lifted the page just enough for the light to catch the emboss. Then he did something nobody expected. He folded the map once along the borderline and pressed the crease with his thumb, slow, deliberate. A long, silent beat. Murmurs turned into one contained exhale. "Ma'am," he said to Mara, still looking at the crease, "this map shows his parcel is outside the HOA boundary. You don't have jurisdiction at that address." Doug's pen froze over a blank line. Mara blinked. "That's not how we've done it for years." "Years don't change filings," the officer said. Mara grabbed for recovery. Section 9D. Annexation by visible frontage. I slid the annexation PDF from another sleeve. May extend isn't does extend, and only if filed and approved. Your proposal was returned, not recorded. Betty said, not quite under her breath. We've paid for air. A low ripple moved through the chairs. Someone's lawnmower cut off 2 streets away, and the sudden absence of noise made the afternoon feel like glass. I set the easement overlay beside the map, and in case this becomes creative, you should know your irrigation and fiber lines cross the corner of my parcel under recorded easements from the developer. Access exists. Ownership doesn't shift. Mara's smile thinned. So, this is extortion. It's a correction, I said. Read it into the record. The officer handed the map back, now creased like a hinge you could teach from. He gestured to the mic. Let's proceed clean. I kept my voice level. For the record, Oakrest Meadows' last valid boundary filing is 2010. No approved annexation exists. The association's authority ends 27 feet before my yard. I'm under county jurisdiction, not HOA governance. A kid on a bike rolled to a stop at the corner 1 foot down, watching like it might turn into a parade. Mara tried one more angle. We are charged with preserving property values. Non-compliance is contagion. Fear is contagious, I said. So is proof. I lifted the binder enough for the county seal to shine again. Paper outlives noise. For a breath, nothing moved, and then a few hands came together without anyone meaning to lead. Applause found itself. The officer didn't stop it. Mara's voice trembled. You're undermining community order. I'm restoring it, I said, to its filed lines. She stared out over the chairs, looking for a face that would save her. Doug shifted his weight and found only the notebook in his hand. Officer, she said, brittle now, will you at least instruct him to comply until we sort this out? He shook his head once. That's not how jurisdiction works. If the county record says he's out, he's out. This is civil, not criminal. The edge went out of the afternoon. People leaned back in their seats as if a weight had been set down between them and their porches. Somewhere a flag snapped once and rested. I closed the binder, the rings clicking like a measured verdict. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. Mara. I said you just lost jurisdiction in daylight. By morning, the bulletin board outside the post office looked different. No garage sale flyers, no piano lessons. Just one new sheet pinned dead center. Bold black letters. County order. All HOA actions suspended. Pending review. A smaller line beneath filed 312-07. Received 08-46. I stood on my porch with coffee cooling in my hand and watched Sheriff Grant's cruiser idle by the curb. The man himself climbed out slow, the kind of slow that means nothing's urgent anymore. He carried a clipboard under his arm and a tan envelope thick with stamped paper. "Morning, Mr. Carter," he said. "Morning, Sheriff." He thumbed the envelope. "County issued an injunction last night. Board meeting citations all frozen till review's complete. He handed me a copy official seal wet enough to smudge if you weren't careful. I could still smell the ink. I turned it toward the light. County injunction property. Jurisdiction determination 24C. Oakrest Lane. That line alone could have weighed 10 pounds. Behind him, Mara Green came striding up the sidewalk, Doug in tow, both mid-argument. "You can't just override community governance," she snapped. "We have rules." Grant didn't flinch. "You have covenants. There's a difference." Doug shifted from one boot to the other. "So, we're shut down, suspended," Grant said. "Pending review of annexation claims." He tapped the header with one finger. "File reference 32-07. County seal makes it law." I could feel the whole street listening from behind half-open blinds. Mara's voice trembled with the kind of anger that runs out of paperwork to hide behind. "We built this neighborhood. You're dismantling order." "No." Grant set his tone flat as the badge on his chest. "We're dismantling assumption." He turned the document over and stamped my copy against the porch rail. Thud, a sound that silenced even the crickets hiding under the hedges. Seal, thud, law, replacing fear. Mara flinched. Doug looked at me, then at her. "Maybe we should—" "Don't," she hissed. "We'll appeal." Grant's eyes didn't move from the paper. "You can, through the same office that already denied annexation." He handed her a second sheet, gentler than his words. "Public copy for your board records. Keep it clean." The sheriff glanced up at my porch light still buzzing from last night. "You filed your complaint proper. County took it proper. That's the difference between protocol and power." I nodded. "And the difference between law and theater." He half smiled. "Being in charge isn't being legal." Betty's voice floated from across the street, half whisper, half victory. "Guess the stage closed early." Grant turned to leave but paused, reading the street like an old survey map. "You'll see folks calm down once paper hits the wall," he said. "Noise burns out faster than ink. Paper outlives noise," I replied, and the echo from last week's hearing landed soft between us. He raised the envelope. "Keep your copy somewhere safe. The county's moving to formalize jurisdiction. You'll get a second document, keys and all, once the injunction finalizes." "Keys?" I asked. "Symbolic," he said, grinning. "Transfer of authority to the county inspector. They'll handle the gate from now on." Mara exhaled hard enough to move hair from her face. "So, what, you're just taking our gate?" Doug muttered. "It's always been county property, technically." The sheriff looked at her. "You wanted boundaries. Now you have them." He tipped his hat, then stapled the public copy to the bulletin board by the mailbox cluster. The staple gun's snap cracked through the cul-de-sac like punctuation. People peeked from porches. Someone clapped once, testing if it was allowed. Then a second hand joined and the rhythm turned to a small, honest applause. Mara froze clipboard hanging loose. Doug folded it closed like a flag after rain. Grant turned back toward his cruiser. "I'll check in after the weekend. Should be quiet by then." He left the hammer of silence behind him. I stood there with the injunction in one hand, coffee forgotten. Sunlight bled through the paper, the watermark glowing faint blue. A crow flew over the roofline, loud and free. I thought of Howard in the archive, his slow fingers tracing borders that didn't move. Maps don't bend, and apparently neither did the law when you filed it right. The street exhaled as the cruiser rolled away. Somewhere, a screen door shut. Mara and Doug whispered something that didn't reach the pavement. I looked down at the order again. Filed, 412-07, stamped clean above my parcel number. Below, a smaller note in fine print: jurisdiction restored to county authority. Pending administrative audit. The ink gleamed. The seal caught the sun. I said it quietly, mostly to the paper. "There's a difference between protocol and power." Then, under my breath, "So who owns Oakrest now?" The community hall smelled of varnish and old microphones. Sunlight cut through the windows and hit the bronze county seal mounted behind the podium. Bright, steady, impossible to ignore. It was the first time anyone had seen that wall bare of HOA banners. Chairs scraped in slow recognition. Sheriff Grant leaned near the side door, arms crossed, watching the room like a man counting breathing, not trouble. Beside him, Howard Klein from the archives had traded his paper dust for a clean shirt and a folder under one arm. Two witnesses, law and memory, both quiet. Mara sat in the second row, hands clasped so tight her knuckles looked carved. Doug sat one chair away, pretending not to notice the space between them. I set a single envelope on the podium, heavy with certified paper. "Thank you for coming," I began. "I didn't ask for a meeting, but the county advised one, for transparency." Someone in back whispered, "He sounds calmer than she ever did." I waited for the murmurs to fade. As of yesterday, jurisdiction of the Common Tracks Park and Hall transferred to the county. During that review title, research found something we'd all missed. I tapped the envelope. "The land under both parcels technically still belongs to my late father's development trust." Gasps rustled through the rows. Mara half rose from her seat. "That's impossible." Howard spoke for the first time. "It's not. The developer never executed the transfer. It's in the filing section, Hortar 12-07. Recorded but unsigned. Grant added, "Paper trail's clean. County confirmed it this morning." I looked at Mara. "Which means I said for 15 years the HOA's Park and Hall sat on private property leased to nobody." The silence felt like oxygen had learned manners. Mara's voice cracked. "You're doing this to humiliate me." "No," I said. "To finish it lawfully." I lifted the envelope. Inside, the transfer deeds stamped notarized and marked received, 412-07, weighted like quiet punctuation. These transfer full title of the Park and Hall to the county for public trust. No rent, no reimbursement. It becomes everyone's again. Grant nodded once. Howard's eyes softened in approval as if history itself had exhaled. Doug stood. "You're giving it away. I'm giving it back," I said. "Neighbors, not suspects." That line seemed to land on every surface. Even the fluorescent lights hummed in agreement. The sheriff stepped forward, held out a small ring of keys. These came from the county inspector. Symbolic handover. I took them, metal cold honest, and set them on the podium. "The locks are yours collectively. The fear isn't." A thin clap began from Betty Walsh, then another until the room filled with applause that wasn't rehearsed. It sounded like air moving out of a long argument. Mara stayed seated, face hidden in her hands. Howard leaned over and whispered, "Paper outlived noise, didn't it?" I smiled. "It usually does." When the room settled, Grant cleared his throat. "Let's read the final record into minutes." He unfolded the county letter, effective immediately. Oakrest Meadows Homeowners Association ceases operational control pending dissolution. All assets under review will transfer to county oversight. He signed below and stamped it the same seal thud that once ended fear, now opened freedom. Mara stood slowly. You could have let it fade quietly. Quiet never fixed anything I said. She met my eyes. Then, why give it away? I looked out over the rows of neighbors, the same people who'd crossed streets to avoid me weeks ago, now standing in the light. "Because justice isn't revenge," I said. "It's daylight." The podium light flickered once the bulb finally dying after years of service. It felt right. Howard closed his folder and patted Grant's shoulder. "Clean ending," he said. Grant nodded. "Lawful one." I gathered the papers and keys, but left the deeds on the table. The county seal caught the last of the sunlight as if to say enough. As people began to file out, Mara lingered near the doorway. Her voice was low but steady. "You're doing this to humiliate me," she said again. I looked at her then, at the light breaking through the blinds. "No," I said. "To free both of us from paperwork we mistook for pride." She blinked once, something like acceptance flickering, then left without a word. Grant waited until the door shut. "You'll sleep better," maybe I said, "but the street will sleep better first." We stepped outside together. The wind caught the edges of the flyers still taped to the bulletin board. The county order flapped once, then settled flat. The sun hit the bronze seal again, bright, merciless, clean. A kind of forgiveness only daylight can give. Morning light skimmed the slate-gray mailbox like a hand over a healed scar. Dew beaded along the post, bright as solder. The street felt new by being honest, no lists, no tickets, no clipboard gravity. Somewhere a grill clicked to life, then a soft cough of flame. Kids coasted past on scooters, chalk dust on their shins, calling out names like a roll call of summer. Across from the mailbox, the new bronze plaque set in the riverstone caught the sun and held it. People had straightened the little bed around it, mulched and edged. The letters were clean, simple, and not up for debate. Respect is stronger than rules. A boy read it aloud to a smaller sister, sounding out stronger like he was lifting the word with both hands. Betty waved from the sidewalk, carrying a paper plate under foil. "Banana bread," she said. "Tradition version 2. Tradition that feeds people," I said. She grinned. "Better metric than uniform hedges." Down the block, a for sale sign at Mara's old house ticked in a lazy breeze flap. Rest. Flap a metronome for a song that was over. No notes, just the memory of them. I checked the bolts at the mailbox, out of habit a quarter turn that didn't need turning. The metal said enough by staying put. A pack of kids stopped by the plaque. One pointed at the small plate below the main line, the one someone had added without asking permission because the county no longer needed to be asked for this kind of common sense, Oakrest Community, Public Trust S10. Farter Tuve 07. Sir, the boy asked, what's that number mean? A chapter that got read into daylight, I said. He nodded, like that was how numbers should work. Silent beat wind in trees, sprinkler hissed the street, letting its shoulders drop. I pulled a postcard from my shirt pocket and set it on the plaque's stone cap. Courthouse on the front, blue sky squared off by clean columns. On the back, in neat block letters, neighborhood's quiet again. Good work. Sheriff Grant. Received 0922. Betty leaned in. You keeping that here? Just for a minute, I said. So the place knows. Howard Klein ambled up with a grocery bag and set out a roll of painter's tape and a blunt pencil like old friends. Brought you something, he said, offering a thin plastic sleeve. Inside, a copy of the certified easement overlay reduced and laminated the seal still proud in the corner. Souvenir, I asked. Reminder, he said. Maps don't bend. People might. I slid it into my messenger bag where the binder used to ride like ballast. Noted. 2 new neighbors rolled a cooler past the lid clicking. The man tipped his cap. Heard you wrangled the bylaws. I read them, I said. Out loud. He laughed. Good enough. A girl chalked a sun beside the stone and pressed both hands into the yellow printing herself next to the letters. No one scolded. No one measured the distance to the edge of the walk. Doug crossed the street, slow hands in pockets. He looked smaller without a clipboard. Hey, he said, careful. Hey, I answered. He nodded at the plaque. You wrote that. Everyone did, I said. I just brought the paper. He breathed in like he'd been underwater and found steps again. I sleep better, he admitted. Good, I said. So does the block. The breeze shifted. The for sale sign clicked twice. We both glanced that way, then didn't say her name. Betty lifted the foil. Warm slice, judge with your mouth. I took one. Steam curled like a quiet flag. Verdict, I said. Approved. Laughter came easy, porch to porch, mid-driveway, not hushed. The sound didn't ask permission, and it didn't need to win anything. It just was. A golden retriever galloped through the sprinkler arc and shook himself clean over the road, baptizing the afternoon. The kids screamed and ran back through the rain on purpose. Howard adjusted his glasses and looked at the plaque again. We did the hard part, he said. Now, you all do the ordinary part. What's that, a boy asked? Be neighbors, he said, not suspects. He hadn't meant to land a line, but it sat right beside the bronze and belonged there. I walked to the mailbox and set my palm flat on its warm side. It had started a fight by being the wrong color and finished one by being exactly itself. No moral, just paint that didn't need a permission slip. Betty pointed at the postcard. Going to frame it? Maybe, I said. Or maybe I leave it here until the next breeze decides. A minivan slowed by the corner. The driver looked at the plaque, then at the kids, then at the mismatched planters on 3 porches in a row. He smiled and kept going. I heard my father's voice not as a speech, but as a shop instruction. If it rattles, tighten it once. If it still rattles, find the truth you're missing. We had tightened. We had found the truth. We had left the rattling in the past. The keys Grant had handed me yesterday ceremonial only hung on a hook by my door. We hadn't changed a lock. We'd changed who the door was for. A neighbor I didn't know well tapped the plaque with a knuckle. This going to add value, he asked, half teasing. It already did, I said. Watch the block. He watched. People waved. Someone posted a note on the bulletin board about a Saturday potluck, no signatures, just a promise of potato salad and a request for folding chairs. I took a breath that felt like it made it all the way down. Finally, someone fought back, I said. Not loud, not for a camera, a sentence that didn't need an echo because it had one everywhere I looked. The for sale sign flicked once more and came still. The breeze had said enough. Somewhere a screen door clapped and the smell of ribs pushed out into the street. A grill lid lifted like a curtain. I tucked the postcard back into my pocket and pressed the brass letters once with my fingers as if to set the type in the day. Respect is stronger than rules. The metal was warmer than I expected. We hadn't won with force. We hadn't won by taking. We'd won by reading. Law had become community again. Tool, not weapon ink, that dried into something people could live with. At the curb, kids piled chalk like coins. Tag one shouted, tagging another's sleeve and sprinting toward the pond path. "You're free!" The word used to clang here. Now it just fit. I lifted my coffee cold and good. The mailbox held its color. The plaque held the sun. The block held itself. And the morning at last held nothing we had to fear. The bronze plaque glowed under the same sun that once caught the sheriff's seal. The street was quiet but not empty, just full of small sounds that meant life had moved on. The mailbox stood firm. The posted order still clear proof that paperwork could outlive noise and still build peace. We didn't win by shouting. We won by showing up, by reading what was filed, and by fixing what was wrong. Finally, someone fought back. Justice isn't loud, it's steady. Share your HOA story below your map might help someone redraw theirs.